My name is Troy. I'm 31. I work rotating shifts at a distribution warehouse, the kind where you're on your feet for 10 to 12 hours and you come home smelling like cardboard and sweat and you don't even take your boots off before you're out cold on the couch. That's important context because that's exactly where I was when my wife Gemma and her cousin Stacy decided I was content for the internet. Gemma and I had been married for 4 years, together for 6. We got the apartment together when I was 25, both our names on the lease, splitting everything. Gemma worked part-time at a dental office, maybe 20 hours a week. I covered most of the rent, the car payment on our 2019 Hyundai Tucson, groceries, utilities. That was fine with me because I loved her. And I figured we were building something. Stacy had been a problem from day one. She'd been living with her boyfriend Simon about 40 minutes away, but she was at our place constantly, sometimes 3 or 4 nights a week, eating our food, using our streaming accounts, treating our apartment like her personal crash pad. Every time I brought it up to Gemma, she'd tell me Stacy was family and that I was being controlling, and we'd go in circles until I just stopped bringing it up. So here's what happened. I came home on a Thursday after a double shift, 14 hours, and I crashed on the couch still in my work clothes. I was so done I didn't even make it to the bedroom. I woke up the next morning, ate, showered, went back to work. Normal. The weekend came. Gemma and I did regular stuff, went grocery shopping, watched a show, nothing weird. The following Wednesday, my coworker Frances came up to me on break and asked if I'd seen Stacy's latest TikTok. I didn't even know Frances followed Stacy, but apparently a few people at the warehouse did because she had a decent following, around 40K. Frances showed me his phone. The video was me, asleep on my couch, mouth open, still in my dusty work uniform. Stacy was holding a funnel over my face while Gemma poured apple juice from a measuring cup, angling it so it looked like it was going into my mouth. They were both laughing so hard the camera was shaking. The caption said something like, "When your man works doubles but can't even make it to bed," with a bunch of crying, laughing emojis. It had over 200K views. I sat there in the break room watching this thing on loop. Francis was laughing at first, but he stopped when he saw my face. I scrolled the comments. Most of them were the usual garbage, people tagging their friends, making jokes. But one comment said something like, "Too bad it's fake, he deserves the real thing." And underneath it, Gemma's account, her actual profile picture and everything, had replied with 3 laughing emojis. Not defending me, not saying that's my husband, stop, just laughing along like I was the punchline of my own life. I drove home after my shift and Gemma was on the couch with Stacy, both of them watching something on Stacy's iPad. I told Gemma out I needed to talk to her alone. Stacy didn't move. I told her again, just me and Gemma. Stacy looked at Gemma like she was waiting for permission, and Gemma told me to just say whatever I needed to say because Stacy was going to hear about it anyway. That told me everything about where I ranked. I pulled up the TikTok on my phone and held it up and asked Gemma if she thought that was funny. If she thought filming me like that while I was unconscious from working to pay for the roof over both their heads was comedy. Gemma rolled her eyes and told me I was overreacting, that it was just a joke, that nobody even knew who I was in the video. I asked her about the comment, the one about deserving the real thing, and why she responded with laughing emojis instead of shutting it down. She said she didn't even read the comment properly, she was just reacting to the notifications. Stacy jumped in and told me I should be grateful for the exposure, that most guys would think it was hilarious, and that I had zero sense of humor. I told Stacy this had nothing to do with her and she needed to take the video down. She laughed and said it was her account and her content, and I couldn't make her do anything. Gemma sat there and didn't say a single word to back me up. Not one. I told Gemma that if the video wasn't down by the morning, I was done. She told me I was being dramatic and that I always threatened to leave over everything, which was not true because I had never once said that before in our entire relationship. I went to the bedroom, locked the door, and started thinking. Not about the video itself, honestly. About the pattern. Stacy being prioritized over me for years. Gemma letting her cousin disrespect me in my own home. The way Gemma looked at Stacy for approval before responding to her own husband. The way I'd been funding a lifestyle for 2 people who saw me as a joke. The video was still up the next morning. Gemma acted like nothing happened, asked me if I wanted eggs. I didn't answer. I left for work, but something had already shifted. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was done being angry and doing nothing about it. For the first time in years, I started actually thinking about what leaving would look like. Not as a threat, but as a plan. Who was on what account? Whose name was on what I'd been paying for and what I could prove. Because if Gemma and Stacy thought I was just going to keep being the punchline while I worked myself to the bone for them, they had absolutely no idea what was coming. The video hit 400K views by the weekend. and I still hadn't said another word about it. Yo, this man worked a 14-hour shift, collapsed on his own couch in his own apartment that he pays for, and his wife's first instinct wasn't, let me take his boots off or let me put a blanket on him. It was get the camera and a funnel. Like the man is literally sacrificing his body for this household, and these two are treating him like a prop on a set he funds. And the part that really gets under my skin, Gemma laughing at that comment. Because you know what? You can accidentally film somebody. You can even accidentally post it. That's a stretch, but fine. But you do not accidentally scroll to a comment about degrading your husband and hit the laugh emoji. That's a choice. That is a deliberate moment where your thumb hovered, your brain processed, and you picked the laugh react over literally any other option, including doing nothing. And then she tells him he's overreacting? This man has been subsidizing a whole ecosystem. Stacy's crash pad, Gemma's lifestyle, the food, the Wi-Fi, the Netflix, everything. And the one time he says, hey, that hurt me, the response is an eye roll and it's just a joke. People throw that phrase around like it's a get-out-of-accountability free card. If the person in the joke isn't laughing, it's not a joke. It's just cruelty with an audience. And I already know this man is about to go surgical with it. You can hear it in the way he stopped talking about it. Silence from someone who's been loud for years? That's not surrender. That's blueprints being drawn. Update 1. All right, a lot of you asked for an update, so here it is. It gets worse before it gets better, so settle in. After the confrontation about the TikTok, I went quiet. Not silent treatment quiet, I just stopped engaging with anything that wasn't necessary. Still came home, still slept at the apartment, but I stopped initiating conversations, stopped picking up groceries on the way back from shifts. Gemma noticed within 2 days and did what she always does when she feels me pulling back. She went to her mother, Belinda. Let me explain Belinda because she's a big part of why Gemma is the way she is. Belinda raised Gemma and Stacy's mom as a single parent and ran that family like a matriarch who could do no wrong. When Gemma and I got engaged, Belinda told me at a barbecue that Gemma was settling and could have done better. But she'd give me a chance because I seemed like a hard worker. Said it like she was doing me a favor. I stood there holding a paper plate with a burger on it and just nodded. Belinda never liked me and made sure Gemma knew it. Every argument we had, Belinda heard about it within the hour, and she always sided with Gemma. Always. So I got home from work on a Monday, and Belinda was sitting at our kitchen table, not visiting, sitting there like she owned the place, with Gemma and Stacy on either side, like some kind of tribunal. Belinda started in immediately, told me I was making Gemma miserable over a harmless video, that I needed to grow up, that men in her generation didn't fall apart over a joke. She said Gemma had been crying every night because I wouldn't talk to her, and that if I wanted this marriage to work, I needed to apologize for my overreaction. Apologize? For being filmed without my consent while unconscious. For my wife laughing at a comment suggesting I deserve to be urinated on. For being humiliated in front of hundreds of thousands of strangers. I sat down across from them and told Belinda that with all due respect, this was between me and my wife. Belinda said when it involves her daughter, it involves her. Stacy was sitting there with this smug look the entire time, and at one point pulled out her phone, and I asked her if she was filming this too, and she put it away fast. I turned to Gemma and told her directly, she could be my wife and stand with me. Or she could be Belinda and Stacy's puppet and I'd start making decisions accordingly. Gemma told me I was always making her choose and it wasn't fair. I told her she already picked every single time for years. Belinda told me if I left Gemma, nobody in the family would feel sorry for me. I told her that was fine because I had nothing left to lose. That conversation went nowhere. I knew it wouldn't. But it wasn't about changing minds anymore. I was gathering information. Here's what none of them knew. I'd spent that entire previous week going through every financial obligation tied to the apartment. The lease was in both our names, renewal coming up in 6 weeks. The car was in my name only because my credit qualified. Insurance, my name. Internet, electric, all under Troy, because Troy set everything up and Gemma never bothered. Every single account was mine because I was the one who built everything, but I wasn't going to just pull the rug and disappear. That's what a pushover does. I wanted Gemma to feel exactly what I felt. Humiliated and powerless in your own home with people laughing at you. I called the leasing office on my lunch break, not to break the lease, but to ask about the renewal process if only one tenant wanted to renew. The property manager told me both parties needed to agree, and if one didn't sign it would convert to month at a higher rate. I asked what Gemma would need to qualify a loan. 3 times the monthly rent and income. Gemma made maybe $1,400 a month part-time. Rent was $1,650. I also reached out to my older brother Francis. I'd been embarrassed about how things were with Gemma, so we hadn't talked much. I showed him the TikTok and he watched it without saying anything. Then he told me his spare room was mine whenever I was ready, and that he'd been waiting years for me to wake up about Gemma. 2 weeks after Belinda's ambush, Gemma tried a different approach. She came into the bedroom while I was going over some paperwork, sat on the bed, and told me she missed me, that she was sorry the video upset me, but she felt like I was punishing her. I asked her one question. Did she ask Stacy to take the video down? She said no, because it would cause drama with Stacy and Belinda. I told her that was my answer. She asked what I meant, and I told her she'd find out soon enough. The video had hit 600K views, and Gemma still hadn't asked Stacy to remove it. Not once. The tribunal scene at the kitchen table is one of the most disrespectful things I've heard in a long time. This man walks into his own apartment, the one he pays for, and there's a 3-person panel assembled to tell him he's the problem. And Belinda hitting him with, "Men in my generation didn't fall apart over a joke. Ma'am, men in your generation also couldn't identify a single emotion besides anger. That's not the flex you think it is." But the real tell in this whole update is something small that I think a lot of people might gloss over. When Troy asked Gemma if she'd asked Stacy to take the video down and she said no because it would cause drama, think about what she's actually saying there. She's saying that mild awkwardness with her cousin is a bigger deal than her husband's dignity. She's saying she'd rather let 600,000 strangers laugh at the man who keeps the lights on than have one uncomfortable 5-minute conversation. That's not conflict avoidance. That's a ranking system. And Troy just found out he's below Stacy's comfort level on the priority list. And his brother Francis watching that video in silence and then just saying, "My spare room is yours?" That is what family looks like. No lecture, no, "Well, did you try talking to her?" Just, "I see you. I've been seeing this. I'm ready when you are." Meanwhile, Gemma's family ran a whole intervention to protect a TikTok account. The contrast is brutal. Update 2. This is where it starts moving fast, so try to keep up. After that bedroom conversation where Gemma admitted she wouldn't ask Stacy to remove the video, I stopped pretending we were going to fix anything. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't arguing, I was executing. First thing I did was notify the leasing office in writing that I would not be renewing the lease. Renewal was 5 weeks out. I didn't tell Gemma. She'd get the standard notice from the office when the time came, and that was her problem to deal with. Second thing, I moved my direct deposit. I'd been sending my full paycheck into our joint checking account for years, and Gemma had her own card linked to it. I opened a new account at a different bank and switched my deposit there. Gemma didn't have login access to my employer's portal, so she wouldn't see the change until the next pay cycle when the joint account balance didn't move. I left $200 in the joint account to cover anything auto-drafted that still had my name on it, but nothing extra. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Stacy had been practically living at our apartment for months, right? She had a key Gemma gave her. She kept clothes in our hall closet, had her own shelf in the bathroom, even had mail coming to our address. I'd been tolerating it because Gemma always shut me down whenever I brought it up. But now, I didn't care about keeping the peace. I contacted the leasing office again and reported an unauthorized occupant. Our lease specifically stated only the named tenants could reside in the unit, and guests staying more than 14 consecutive days needed to be added to the lease with a background check and approval. Stacy had been there for months with none of that. The property management company sent a formal notice to both Gemma and me about the violation within 3 days. Gemma lost it when she got that notice. She came at me in the kitchen demanding to know if I reported Stacy, and I told her yes, because Stacy was in violation of the lease that had my name on it, and I wasn't going to risk an eviction on my record because her cousin wanted free rent. Gemma called me petty and told me I was trying to control who she could have in her own home. I reminded her it was my home too, actually more mine since I paid for most of it, and that Stacy had her own apartment with Simon 40 minutes away that she apparently never used. Gemma told me Stacy had been having problems with Simon and needed somewhere to stay. I told her that wasn't my problem and never was. This was the first time Gemma actually looked scared. Not sad, not angry, but genuinely worried. Because the lease violation notice meant the property management could start proceedings if Stacy wasn't removed within 10 days. And Gemma knew that if we got evicted for a lease violation, that would follow both of us, so she had to comply. Stacy had to go. Stacy didn't go quietly. She showed up the next Saturday to collect her things and spent the entire time telling Gemma how I was a controlling, insecure loser who couldn't handle a joke. She kept saying it right in front of me while she packed her bathroom shelf into a garbage bag. I didn't engage. I sat at the kitchen table eating cereal and didn't say a single word to her. That made her angrier than anything I could have said. She told Gemma to come stay with her and Simon, and Gemma said she couldn't just leave because her name was on the lease too. Stacy told her to just stop paying and let me deal with it. which was hilarious advice considering Gemma barely paid anything to begin with. Now, here's the part I didn't see coming. Belinda called me directly that evening, not Gemma's phone, my phone. She told me I was tearing the family apart over my ego and that kicking Stacy out was cruel and unnecessary. I told Belinda that I didn't kick anyone out. The leasing office enforced the lease terms, and that maybe Stacy should have thought about consequences before filming someone in their sleep and posting it for a million people to laugh at. Belinda went quiet for a second and then told me something that actually explained a lot. She said Stacy's TikTok account was bringing in money, that Stacy had been getting brand deals and that the video of me was one of her most successful posts, and that by making Stacy's life harder, I was threatening her income. Belinda said I should be glad Stacy was finally making something of herself instead of trying to tear her down. So that was it. That was the reason nobody wanted the video taken down. It wasn't just a joke. Stacy was profiting off of humiliating me, and Gemma and Belinda both knew it and were protecting that income stream. I was the product. My unconscious body on that couch was literally generating revenue for someone who ate my food and used my electricity while I worked doubles. I told Belinda that if Stacy's career was built on humiliating people without their consent, then her career deserved to fail. And I hung up. Belinda texted me 4 times after that. I read them all and didn't respond. The next morning, I packed a bag and drove to Francis's place. I didn't tell Gemma I was leaving. I just left. But I didn't remove my name from anything yet because the lease still had 4 weeks on it and I needed that leverage. Gemma tried calling me 11 times that first day. I let every single one ring out. I wasn't done. Not even close. This man sat there eating cereal while Stacy packed her bathroom shelf into a garbage bag and called him every name she could think of. That is a level of composure that can only come from someone who has already emotionally left the building and is now just running the administrative side of the demolition. And honestly, the cereal detail is what makes this so perfect because that's what Stacy and Gemma never understood about Troy. They mistook his patience for weakness. For years, this dude absorbed every insult, every eye roll, every Belinda monologue. Every night, Stacy crashed on his couch eating his groceries, and they all thought, oh, he'll never do anything. He never does anything. They confused his love with submission. And now they're watching a man who knows every account number, every lease clause, every financial thread holding their little arrangement together, and he's pulling them out one by one like a surgeon. But the Belinda phone call revelation? That's the part that should make everyone's blood boil. This whole time on the tribunal, the guilt trips, you're tearing this family apart, all of it was about money. Stacy was getting brand deals off that video. Troy's sleeping body was literally a revenue stream. They weren't defending family. They weren't defending a joke. They were defending a business model. And the business model was exploiting a man too tired to stay awake. And they had the audacity to call him selfish. Every person in that family saw Troy as a resource. Gemma saw a bill payer. Stacy saw content. Belinda saw a workhorse her daughter could ride until a better option came along. Not a single one of them saw a person. Final update. Last one. This is where everything landed. After I moved to Francis's place, I gave it 1 week of silence. Gemma's calls slowed from 11 a day to 3. Then she switched to texting walls of messages. First angry ones about me abandoning her. Then sad ones about not sleeping. Then practical ones asking about car insurance and the electric bill. I read every one because I needed to know where her head was at. She still hadn't mentioned the video. Not once. It was all about what she was losing, never about what she did. The lease clock was ticking. 3 weeks left. When the non-renewal notice finally arrived from the office, Gemma texted me a picture of it and said we needed to talk now. I told her I'd come by Thursday after my shift. I showed up and Gemma was alone for the first time in maybe a year. No Stacy, no Belinda. Just her at the kitchen table with the notice and a stack of mail she'd been ignoring. Mostly bills going past due because the joint account was almost empty. She started by saying she knew she messed up, that she should have had Stacy take the video down immediately, that she was sorry. I let her finish. Then I asked why she was sorry now, and not 5 weeks ago when I first asked. She said she didn't think I was serious. I told her that was exactly the problem. She never took me seriously because Belinda raised her to believe I was beneath her and replaceable. Gemma pushed back. She said Belinda was just protective. All mothers are like that. I told her Belinda said to my face at our engagement barbecue that Gemma was settling for me and asked if she knew. Gemma went quiet, then said Belinda says things she doesn't mean. I told her Belinda meant every word and Gemma knew it, and that's why she never once in 6 years stood up to her mother on my behalf. Then I brought up the money. I told her I knew Stacy was earning revenue from TikTok and the video of me was one of her top posts, and that she and Belinda both protected that income at my expense. Gemma said she didn't know about the brand deals until recently. I told her it didn't matter when she found out because even after knowing, she still chose Stacy's pocket over my dignity. I asked if Stacy ever offered to split any of that revenue, since it was filmed in our apartment, of me, without consent. Gemma didn't answer. I laid out what was happening. The lease was ending, I was not renewing. She could try to sign a new lease alone, but she'd need to qualify financially. The car was mine. I was taking it. Utilities were in my name, getting canceled when the lease expired. I told her every single thing she was about to lose was something I built while she and her family treated me like a joke, and I told her I'd already filed for divorce. She asked when I filed. Previous week, she asked about counseling. I said no, counseling is for people who both want to fix something. And she'd had 5 weeks to show me that and instead sent her mother and cousin to fight her battles. Then the part I'd been waiting for. I told Gemma to let Stacy know I'd submitted a formal complaint to TikTok about the video, citing that I was filmed without consent while unconscious in a private residence, with documentation of every view milestone and the comment where a stranger suggested urinating on me that my wife endorsed with laughing emojis. Stacy could take it down herself or wait for the platform to act and deal with a content violation on a monetized account. Multiple violations could mean losing monetization entirely. Stacy's career was built on my humiliation and I was pulling the foundation out. Gemma asked if this was really what I wanted. I told her what I wanted was a wife who respected me. And instead I got one who filmed me in my sleep and laughed when strangers talked about degrading me. I took the car keys off the counter and left. 3 days later, the video was gone. Stacy took it down herself. Gemma showed up at Francis's door that weekend, crying, begging me to talk. I opened the door and told her she should have asked Stacy to take it down when I asked the first time. Then, I closed the door. The divorce is moving forward. Simon told Stacy to move out of their place too after seeing the full picture. So Stacy is back at Belinda's. Gemma is trying to get Belinda to co-sign a new lease. Belinda told her to fix her marriage first. I work my shifts. I come home to a quiet place. Nobody is filming me. And the couch I fall asleep on is actually mine. You know what's devastating about this ending? Gemma texted him about car insurance and electric bills and past due mail and the lease notice. Walls and walls of messages. And never once mentioned the video. Not once. That tells you everything about what she was mourning. She wasn't mourning her husband. She was mourning her infrastructure. Troy wasn't a partner to her. He was a subscription service she forgot to appreciate until the account got canceled. And her apology at that kitchen table, "I didn't think you were serious." That sentence is going to haunt her for the rest of her life, and it should. Because what she's really admitting is that she had spent so long watching this man tolerate disrespect that she genuinely believed there was no bottom. That he would just absorb everything forever like some kind of emotional landfill. She calibrated her entire marriage around the assumption that Troy would never leave. And that's not love, that's inventory management. But my favorite detail in this entire saga? Belinda. The same Belinda who orchestrated tribunals and told Troy nobody would feel sorry for him. When Gemma finally needs her to co-sign a lease, Belinda says, "Fix your marriage first." Ma'am, you helped break this marriage. You sat at that kitchen table and demanded this man apologize for having boundaries. You knew your niece was making money off his sleeping body, and you defended it. And now when the consequences arrive at your door, suddenly it's Gemma's problem to fix? That whole family runs on the same operating system. Use someone until they're empty, then act shocked when they stop showing up to be used. And Troy? This man didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't post his own revenge content. He just quietly figured out every single thread holding their world together and pulled them all at once with the precision of someone who finally realized his silence was never respected as patience. It was exploited as permission. The couch line at the end is poetic in a way that I don't think Troy even intended. He started this story unconscious on a couch that someone else turned into content. He ended it conscious, on his own couch, in his own peace. That's not a revenge story. That's a man who finally woke up.